County Facilities meeting. We have two agendas in front of you today. We do have a quorum of supervisors from the committee level here today. I'd like to start with the Building and Grounds and Department of Public Works agenda. Is there any discussions in regards to the minutes that we're looking to approve today? Is there a motion to approve those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, excuse me. The agenda, new business. There is a contract in front of you today. It looks like it's a contract with Winship Overhead Doors. Frank Morehouse is here. If there's any discussions or questions in regards to the proposal on the award of the bid. Frank, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, Mr. Chairman, this is just a routine maintenance and repair on overhead doors that if we run into a problem we can't handle. This Winship was, I believe, the only bidder on the bid. And we're looking for a contract with some 2 years of renewals.
Very good. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 4 is a notice of intent to backfill a position. Kevin Hajos is here to discuss or answer any questions in regards to that position. Apparently, if there's a vacancy that has occurred due to a transfer within the system.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a position that is needed. We're probably light on staff now regarding for cleaners as well as janitors. The courthouse just came online, and I believe, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, as of June 1st, we have another cleaner coming for that. But this position was a vacancy due to the person leaving and going to another position within the county. So I need to backfill this.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Referrals and pending items. I'm going to call this a little bit of old business. This committee has tabled the D&G recycling contract. We've been operating on a monthly basis. Supervisor Wild has offered his assistance in preparation and negotiations of this contract. I'd like to extend him the abilities to reach out to them and continue to operate on a monthly basis with the idea or intent to have a long-term agreement brought back to this committee if it's the committee's choice to do that. So that's kind of an update in regards to the D&G agreement that we have currently in place. Is there any, Mr. Loeb, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. First, just for the record, thank you for having the contract sent out again. It turns out that I did receive the first copy. Notice that it was there. And looking at the contract, I noticed, I guess, it's in relation to all of our assets that we use. There's a value that starts with, and although there's an insurance policy that D&G has to have, how does that impact the value of our asset over the longevity of their contract? They start with a certain condition, and they're supposed to return the property and the equipment in good condition minus normal wear and tear. But over the years, normal wear and tear, machinery will have no value. We take that into account when we do our rental.
Well, I hope we do, simply because the baler that the county owns in there was used by the previous tenant, and I think that has to be factored into the rental agreement along with the normal maintenance that occurs there. There are some issues that I've discussed with the county attorney in regards to language in that contract that may support, you know, the maintenance and the condition of the building and the baler itself. So I'm hoping when we sit down and negotiate the agreement that we factor in the county's equipment that's being used by the tenant to generate or make money.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Very good. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, information for discussions on the court project. Frank, is there anything to report?
Well, we are fully functional in the new family court, and I was very happy with the way the transition went. Very few minor bugs in the systems, and I think everyone is happy with the new space. We have started the Phase 2 construction phase, which right now is pretty much demolition. They're not building anything yet, but they are tearing out the old courtroom and getting ready for that next phase. So there's some noise and some dust issues, particularly in probation, but we've moved part of probation into the temporary court space after the court's moved out. So it's going along well. They're anticipating possibly being out of there by this fall, so that's way ahead of schedule. And just for information, I know there's been some questions. They are talking about some sort of ribbon cutting in mid to late June, after the front parking lot is finished and the construction trailers are moved to the back of the building and the front has been dressed up. So we'll keep you informed on that.
Good. Thank you.
Chairman, tied in with this, the original main entrance to the courthouse is no longer going to be the main entrance, but we have the original main entrance to the county flagpole. I mentioned this before. The steps are unsafe and the whole area is unsightly. I'm wondering if we could, it would be something we could do tomorrow or this weekend, but plan a project to basically rebuild that whole area to make it look sightly and appropriate.
Maybe something that you want to discuss during the budget process in establishing a capital project in regards to that. I don't know what the cost would be at this point in time, but we certainly could ask the engineer to come back with a idea of proximity of what it would cost. But I think that would be something that would have to be established through the budget process, unless there's surplus monies in the existing budget that would allow to undertake that project. I don't know that for a fact at this point in time.
Like that, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Lowe, in the past, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was asked to do a conceptual design for the front of the county center. I did the conceptual design. I had handed it off to Superintendent Tennyson at the time, and I believe he had taken it to committee, but I don't know where it went to. I still do have that conceptual design. We can resurface that, bring it back to committee, let everybody review it, and we can decide what we would like to do.
Great. That would tie in with what the chairman's.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussions
Yeah.
around the court project?
On the court project.
Okay, now it's time to open it up to the privilege of the floor. Mr. Garrity.
Jack, where are we with the D&G? Where does that stand? There's been a lot on the...
We've had a couple of inspections down there.
Right.
I've been contacted and put on notice about areas of concerns there. I've asked Kevin to examine what some of those points of interest were that were brought to our attention. I think he does have a couple of reports, but I don't know if there's any significant impact. Certainly there was a question about...
Well, how long is the contract running for?
It's expired.
So
Contract
are we just
did
doing
expire.
a month?
We're going month to month at this point in time until we figure out whether, number one, we want to renew the contract, 2, possibly sell the building, put it back on the tax rolls,
Okay.
or 3, release it.
Is there a
or-
timeline on that, when that's going to happen?
I'm kind of, Mike was going to start to get involved a little bit more detailed in regards. I know that I've been, approached that maybe there is an interest in the existing tenant, and it's difficult to speak for him, that he may be interested in buying it, but I think that's something that this board needs to make a determination. And when I did have a discussion with him, I asked him about what his business plan was at the time, because I did go down and go through the facility.
Yeah.
And I asked him to put that business plan in writing so he could present his thoughts to this board, but I haven't seen anything yet.
Okay, 'cause I was down there too, and it's, certainly it's a tough business to be in, the way it
The
is.
conditions have deteriorated over time. Our scale house hasn't been maintained. The outside area is an eyesore, and those things are going to be addressed in the contract that the county attorney was working on, is try to address some of those issues. We've had some inspections down there, in-house inspections down there, just to make sure that the county's interest is preserved and protected. It's tough. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, just for Kevin, Kevin, part of that building is going to be reserved for us? Is that what the intent is?
There is a portion of the building that's reserved for us. That's for Brian LaFleur and all his OES equipment, Office of Emergency Services. And I believe he's already taken some of that equipment down there and stored it inside already.
His plan, and there was a question raised on the floor about 2 months ago about the storage of equipment, is that he will move the rest of his equipment down there. I think after the event that's going to occur, which is Americade. He's going to move it down after Americade and complete that transition of moving the emergency medical responder equipment down there. That's the intent that was reported back to me. But there is significant square footage space down there that can be either utilized by the county, which that's the intent now, or leasing that storage space out, whatever the board wants to do. Any other discussions around the facility down on Lower Warren Street? Okay, move on to the privilege of the floor. At this point in time, if anybody has anything they want to address the committee, please introduce, please feel free. If there isn't, we'll move on with the second agenda that's in front of you today, which would be the facilities meeting. Again, we have a quorum of supervisors from the committee here today. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Has there been discussions in regards to the prior committee meeting minutes? If not, is there a motion to accept those meeting minutes? You don't? Oh, okay. Great. We'll move on to item 3. Action agenda, new business, estimated capital project, marketing. Kevin would like to talk a little bit. Apparently, the county has received a $40,000 marketing grant through Senator Little's office. Kevin wants to talk a little bit about that marketing grant with the committee today.
Sure. This is, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution to establish a capital project for that marketing grant. It's a $40,000 grant through New York State DOT, and as the Chairman said, Senator Little's office, there is no county share associated with this. It's $40,000 strictly from the state. This marketing grant is basically to be used, at least what we had proposed, or was proposed back in 2016, to be used for basically business opportunities with a focus on development of available land around the airport. This is, we would hire a consultant to do this work. It's proposed to achieve basically a market analysis to create a profile of the airport's existing market for development. I can't tell you exactly how much land is available. I'm not sure of that, but again, it's a $40,000 grant. There's no cost to the county for the grant.
Question that I have, Kevin, in regards to this grant, has the county received the funding already, or is the county obligated to front-end the money and then through a reimbursement process, the county gets the money?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's always through a reimbursement process. They don't fund the money up front. I don't think any agency reimbursement from land up front, whether it's federal highway, New York State DOT, FA. It's always through a reimbursement process. We have been approved to receive the grant and been awarded the grant, but it will be through a reimbursement process.
Is there a timeline? I don't see it in the
There is no
notification.
timeline on this grant. I had
Oh.
actually called DOT, and it's scaled out to
It says 2020 on the top.
2020 on the
Yeah.
front.
Do we have monies already appropriated to establish this marketing grant?
This would be to establish that money.
So is there funds available at this point? Or do we have to create the capital project
We're
to fund
creating a
it?
capital project.
Okay. Okay. Any questions around that? Mr. Stroud?
Yeah, Kevin, thank you. Would we do an RFP, put together an RFP, send that out as part of the 40,000? Would we hire?
We would hire, possibly, I don't think we would hire one of the normal consultants at the airport. I think we would put out an RFP to a marketing firm.
Who would we hire to do the RFP? Or would we do it
We would
in-house?
RFP in-house.
In-house.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you. Kevin, the full scope of this, is this going to include the EDC? Because I understand the EDC is always thinking about how we're developing the land adjacent to the airport. And there's probably IDAs and another alphabet soup worth of agencies probably doing the same thing, but I'm just curious how we're going to work on coordinating this marketing plan so we're not doing things independently, but we're doing things jointly.
I believe Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You led right into what I wanted to bring up. Tonight at the IDA, we actually are looking at a proposal from Jack Kelly of Caldwell Banker. Many of you are probably familiar with Jack Kelly, but he's done he's brought a lot of hotels and projects. He was involved with AMD. We were looking at a proposal to market the properties of the IDA, the park, industrial park over there. And I was going to suggest that we need to, if this should go forward after tonight, that we should set up a meeting with Jack and talk about that.
Absolutely.
So he will be the sole marketing. He's going to incorporate marketing and the sales of the lots. Pretty excited about that proposal.
okay, thanks. Mr. Stroud?
And the EDC is working on developing with that particular area an economic opportunity zone. So, yeah, so to mention what Mike said, it certainly will, part of the process will be to involve the IDA, the
Sure.
EDC, and all these others because they all bring something to the table.
Very good. Mr.
Yeah,
Beatty?
just as long as we follow the correct legal process of putting out an RFP for it, I don't want to explain it to any one marketing company or anything like that. And I'd love to have the EDC involved so that we can all decide what's the best language to be put in the RFP.
Any other comments? Thank you, Kevin. Okay, is there a motion to approve that capital project?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Mr. Simpson, Mr. Weil. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is amending Resolution 671 of 2015, rationale amending the resolution of Daniel G. Vinciletti. Kevin Hajos is here, services associated with EDPL and Forest Enterprises. This is before my time as chairman, so I'll turn that over to Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Discussions.
This is to amend Resolution 671 of 2015, which are attached to your packet on page 6. This was to provide legal services associated with the eminent domain procedure law with Forest Enterprises. The original estimate, I believe, was for $20,000, and I think that estimate was done based on that they would not have to go to court. They actually had to go to court for this. We haven't gotten the final transcript from the court, but Daniel Vinciletti has sent me an email saying that everything went well in the court proceedings, but this is the extra cost of them spending 2 days in court to defend the eminent domain.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve that amendment?
No, I got questions.
Mr. Beatty?
Yeah, I'm going to vote against this for a number of reasons. But one of them is, this is another typical screw-up, I think, by our county. Number one is we didn't need to take this land through eminent domain because we haven't even gotten approval yet for the 1,000-foot extension, okay? So that's as usual, we put the cart before the horse, and we're very good at that. So we paid this law firm $18,627.50. And then he comes back and we don't even put in consideration that it may even go to court. Heaven forbid we actually think of what some of the consequences could be. And so it goes to court. And so he said, hey, I need another $16,500 because I spent 2 days in court. So now we're up to $35,127.50. And I find that a very misuse of county and taxpayer funds. We got to be, as a board and as a committee, a lot smarter than this. I mean, for us to think, well, it's never going to go to court, that's one of the things we should have thought right from the get-go. It's probably going to go to court, and that money should have been involved in that. But I still think that we should have never even gone through eminent domain. People on this board are all against eminent domain until it comes to the airport. I remember Supervisor Wood saying, I can't stand eminent domain. Well, do you want to take eminent domain for Mr. McCreary's land? Yes. That type of hypocrisy just kind of gets me going a little bit. So anyway, I'm going to vote against this. It doesn't make sense. As usual, the county screwed up, and we're paying more than we should be.
Any other comments? Mr. Weil?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin, was this ever brought in front of the committee before the decision was made to go to court to do like a cost-benefit summary? To say maybe it was worthwhile settling instead of going to court?
And I'm not an expert on eminent domain, Supervisor Weil, but typically that's the process of it. They go through is they provided an offer, tried to reach a settlement. They didn't apparently reach a settlement, so that's when it goes into court. So up front of this, they have already provided an offer, and I don't think Mr. McCreary had accepted the offer.
Okay, so my next question is a follow-on. Why would this come now after the fact instead of coming before we went to court? We knew that there was expenses that were going to be incurred.
I can't answer that question. I apologize, but I can't. I wasn't part of it originally. I had just received this when I received an invoice in the mail from Vince Letty. But I had spoken with Mary about this. She's not here right now, and asked her if this was reasonable cost, and she informed me yes, it was. And part of the resolution spoke to whether or not there'd be any fair or reasonable additional charges.
Mr. Beatty? Are you done, Mr. Weil?
Mr. Chairman, no, it's more of a procedural question. Maybe we should be, bringing these resolutions before we expend these funds, so we aren't to the point where, like Supervisor Beatty is saying, that we probably shouldn't approve this. And that's not what I'm saying. I agree we need to pay this.
Right.
It's an obligation,
Yep.
but it's a procedural thing that probably should come to the committee before.
Maybe the committee needs to look in greater detail what the process of eminent domain is and have that discussion, to your point, in advance of initiating the process itself. It was my understanding eminent domain, but Claudia is a practicing attorney, so she probably could add a little bit more process that if a municipality wants to exercise eminent domain, the judge's decision is to determine what the value of the land is, and that's how the process works. I think it moves rather quickly, but to your point, I think we got to pay the bills, but in advance of the process and going forward again, maybe we'll have that detailed discussion before we start to engage into eminent domain.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just expand that beyond any kind of eminent domain, any other kind of legal action that the county decides to take, we should have.
$16,000 seems to be above the average for a couple of days' worth of work. But the bill's got to be paid.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm thinking two ways. What if we don't pay the bill because we never approved this going to court. We never, like Mr. Wild said, we never had an opportunity. And I guess the next thought is, so if a lawyer says, hey, by the way, it's an extra 16 grand, you guys need to cough it up. Who the heck says we have to cough it up? What if we don't feel that's fair? And you just made the comment yourself, you feel that's excessive. So, this is what happens when we as a board start doing things that doesn't make sense, it's not good business practice, and we get ourselves caught in these things. So maybe, I wish Mary was here, maybe we have a discussion of what if A, we don't pay the bill, or B, why don't we try to negotiate the bill down? If we have to pay it, why isn't there a discussion on negotiating the bill down? I think $8,200 a day is rather excessive for a lawyer to stand up in a courtroom. Now, if that was the case, 365 days a year times 8,000, you're getting 2.5 million. So, I think we need to have that discussion.
Okay, I've got 4 other people that would like to be part of the discussion. Claudia, you've had your arm up on several occasions. Is there something you'd like to add?
Thanks. I am not an expert in eminent domain proceedings, but it sounds like we're still going to have the attorney have to do additional things. It doesn't sound like it's completely resolved. So we should know what that person is going to charge us going forward. Like we should have known previously, but I mean, this just sounds like another payment in a string of payments that's going to become due. Where is the lawsuit? Maybe you said that already and I was zoning out, but...
I had called Vince Lloyd's office last Friday and asked him if there'd be any more invoices coming from him. He gave me a range of about $3,000. Really, from his invoice, I only needed about $13,000, but I added the $3,000 more and the $3,500 more just to make sure that we're covered for his final invoices. And this doesn't just involve his services, it also involves an appraiser putting maps together as well, so it's not just 2 days of someone being in court. It involves a little more work than that. And there is money within the capital project to cover this. There is no food money in the budget.
Did we ever authorize the expenditure for the appraisal?
Yes.
Yeah, there's already 5,000 in there for the appraisal, so that shouldn't be additional money. It says not to exceed 5,000 for an appraisal.
That was based, I believe, and again, I was not part of this, it was based, I believe, on the original appraisal that was done, and then there were maps and boards provided for the court as well.
If it would be the privilege of the board, why don't we invite this attorney here and explain to him, or ask him the questions in regards to his service agreement with us, and...
You're going to bill us for that day?
Probably. Nobody works for nothing.
That would be an expensive day.
Hopefully it's not $8,200. I mean, what's the alternative? I mean, there's been some questions raised about his performance, what he's charging the county. To have Kevin sit here and answer those questions, I think it's difficult to say the least. Why don't we just invite him, or say and talk to him about what he's provided the county for services. Mr. Garrity?
Yeah, I mean, why don't we just go back to the original contract and make sure that we're on the hook for any extra money?
Okay.
Because if you read this, it said not to exceed. So before I would pay this bill, I would go back to my original contract and read it over and just make sure that we are on the hook, or there had to be authorization for this gentleman to take it one step further. And that's what I would do before I'd worry about whether we're going to pay him or not. I'd go back to the original contract, dissect it, and then see if we're on the hook for this extra money. Because it says not to exceed $20,000, so they had to have an idea what this is going to cost us. Plus, the appraisal was $5,000; that was built into it.
They may have needed authorization to exceed that.
Yeah, just go back and read the resolution, and then there's got to be a paper trail if somebody authorized further expense.
Mr. Strahl, you had your arm up?
Yeah, well, Kevin already addressed some of the issues I was thinking as well. But I do remember lengthy discussions on having the eminent domain process and forest enterprises, and so I know that as a committee it's gone, this discussion, I'm not sure about the resolutions, but the discussion has happened, and it has happened at length in the past.
Would it make sense then to table this resolution, take a look at the initial agreement?
I'll make a motion we table it until we get more information.
Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Referral pending items, there are none. The next item on the agenda is discussions of an airport manager. I know we had a detailed discussion about that approximately 2 months ago. Kevin has asked to forward that onto the agenda to discuss in further details about an airport manager and what he would have in mind in regards to a salary. So at this point in time, I turn that over to Kevin.
At the request of the committee back in, thank you, Mr. Chairman, request of the committee back in February, I was given approval to move forward in hiring an airport manager. I took Chairman Diamond and a couple other individuals around the airport who really believed that we did need an airport manager for all the assets and such that we have out there, as well as contracts, and just our basically having a presence out there and also dealing with all the grants and contracts that we receive or maintain. I had advertised for, I believe, 30 days in a national advertisement as well as local. I received, and I believe I let the committee know, 8 applicants. Of the 8, I chose 5 that I would believe would be the candidates that I wanted to interview and maybe the best candidates who might accept the job. I narrowed it down to 3, and I reviewed those again to determine who I thought maybe would be the best one to fit the position. I have found an individual who used to work here at the county. He's got over 25 plus years of experience as an airport manager. He's actually got experience at ours. He's very familiar with the airport. He spent almost 4 years here. Left for no reasons of the airport, just something tragic happened in his life. He's willing to come back to the county to work. He has requested the existing salary that the current airport manager has is almost $75,000. I believe it's $74,768. The applicant that I've talked with would like to come back to the county. Would like to come back to the county at a salary of $80,000. It's money that I already have in the budget since the existing airport manager has gone part-time this year. I have enough to cover that if this gentleman comes on July 1st, I have enough in this year's budget to cover that $80,000 salary. I'm in need. I know that even Jeff spoke to this at one time or another back in November. I'm in need of an airport manager out there. I think I explained it in a meeting the other day with a couple individuals that most nights I'm probably up till midnight working on whether it has something to do with the airport and or DPW to try to stay ahead. I don't mind doing that, but it's not, I can't continue doing it. And an airport manager is needed. So there is money in this year's budget to cover that increased salary, and then at budget time we would just have to establish a new salary or establish the salary at the $80,000.
Still
Chairman, do we need a motion to move forward?
Well, it's on the floor for discussions.
I would like to make a motion that we move forward with
Second.
We have a discussion first?
Sure.
Get it on the floor first.
Make the motion.
Get it on the floor.
That's normally what we do. We make the
Let's
motion.
put a
Second.
motion, we've got a second to put it on the floor, and at this point in time, we're going to have a discussion around the issue.
I believe that we need a part-time airport manager. I don't think you can justify a full-time position out there. And Kevin, was there a thought possibly of this individual maybe sharing his job?
I spoke to that the other day. There is a thought of possibly in the future, not right now, but possibly in the future of having sort of a shared individual out there. Again, I think it has to be reevaluated in the future. Right now, I need somebody full-time at the airport. But the thought process was maybe later on, maybe reevaluating that maybe this person could work between the airport and DPW. But right now, I need a full-time person.
It's interesting that there are some airports very close by that do not have airport managers. Saratoga, for example. Different airports, and 50 miles of us. So it's not kind of a done conclusion that airports require, airports that are not the busiest of airports in the world, that require a full-time airport manager. And I'm going to have I'm happy to support a part-time manager. I'm going to have difficulty supporting a full-time manager.
Mr. Straub?
I'm going to disagree with Peter. I think we got the expansion. We've got environmental review. If we do go with the expansion, the environmental review includes management of the environment in that immediate area. We have the RFP out there now. I don't know where that's going. We have a marketing coming up. I mean, I see a lot of things right now where I think, at least for now, we need somebody full-time. And our airport, I would argue, is very different from Saratoga's and has different needs. So I think that we have enough to support a full-time person, at least at this time.
Garrity?
I support a full-time airport manager. I mean, knowing the history of this individual who worked for us before, he's instrumental in keeping us up to speed on what's going on, entirely different from the current airport manager. We were very involved with what was going on at the airport when this person was there. I think he is an asset to Warren County to get him back. He has gone out to bigger and different airports. Certainly can come back and get us back on track. And irregardless of if you think it's part-time or we think it's part-time, we still own all that property and a lot of those buildings out there. And I do think we need somebody to watch over our assets for Warren County a little bit better than what's been going on.
Beatty?
Yeah, I'm going to support a part-time airport manager at best. There are numerous counties across the state, not just Saratoga, that do not have both an airport manager and an FBO. Let me say that again. Do not have an airport manager and an FBO. Now, I would support a part-time airport manager. I'll go as far as that. But I don't see this being a full-time position. And now, we're not going from a full-time position, we're going to an individual that wants even more money than what we said we'd even pay. So, as usual, it doesn't make much business sense. But that's how we operate up here. I will not support a full-time airport manager at this time. It hasn't been proven we need one. The expansion, contrary to what Supervisor Strauss says, the expansion hasn't happened. Hasn't happened for years, FYI. In fact, it's not even going to happen until a hydrology study is performed out there, which a conference call of 5 agencies were on just 3 weeks ago. I wish I could have been invited to be on it, but I wasn't. But anyway, they said, hey, we're not doing anything until a hydrology study. So the chances of the expansion happen are slim. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. But I don't have a crystal ball. But I'm not going to hire somebody full-time on the come. Well, it may happen. This may do. This may do. That doesn't make good business sense to me, and I would never do that. So I'll support a part-time manager.
Mr. Simpson?
With a county-owned property owned by the taxpayers, it's valued at well over $80 million. I totally support a full-time airport manager there, along with an FBO. Who's going to watch our interests
I said
there?
part-time.
I know part-time.
doing
I don't
it.
think cuts it.
Your
There's a
opinion.
lot involved there. Thank you, Doug. I am entitled to my opinion.
I just said that's your opinion.
But I didn't interrupt you when you spoke. So.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
thank you. I'm going to expand on what Supervisor Beatty said. He mentioned that there's no guarantee that the airport expansion is going to happen. I'm hoping that there's no guarantee that an FBO is going to happen, because if we come out of this meeting with that kind of perception, that it really hurts our negotiating team and our position when we're thinking about going forward with an FBO contract. I myself personally have a lot of questions about the FBO approach and whether it should be all-inclusive or whether we should have a much higher role. So having some experienced manager to help us make some of these decisions, I think in the short term I think is the wise approach.
Mr. McDevitt?
I'm a 100% supporter of the airport extension. I have consistently voted that way. Unless something dramatic happens in terms of circumstances, I will continue to do that. I believe it's long-term. I think it is the right thing to do for this county. At the same time, based on our current circumstance, where we have an FBO in place, I clearly can support a part-time airport manager, but will not support a full-time at this point.
Mr. Leggett?
Well, this comes at the recommendation of the superintendent of our DPW, and he's the one that's in charge of these facilities, knows what the workload is of these facilities. So we hired him because he is a man of a reasonable mind. I would say if he recommends that we hire a full-time airport manager to handle the workload that's going on out there, we do it.
Okay, hang on. Claudia, please, then I'll get to that.
I would support a full-time facilities manager that would cover the airport and handle other DPW issues, but I don't think we need a full-time airport manager. I think once that person gets their feet on the ground and gets us back organized and takes some of that off of our superintendent, I don't think that person needs to be there every single waking minute, and it'd be nice to have someone that could float around, but if we call this person the airport manager, I think that all goes out the window. We're never going to change that person's job description.
Edna? John, you're
Well,
next.
I want to say I agree 100% with Craig, and it seems like we put a person in a position, they come to us and say, this is the recommendation, but all of a sudden we're smarter than that person who's running the operation on a daily basis. I thought that's what we hired him for, was for him to kind of run the facility, and if he's working until midnight, it's a little unfair of us to think he should continue doing that. My feeling is we should certainly support the full-time person.
Mr. Strong?
And Kevin and I have talked about this particular person. This particular person brings to the table a whole lot of things that I think could move our airport into the next generation. This person has marketing experience. This person has a FAA experience. This person has a variety of airports, large and small, experience. You're not going to get a person like this at a half salary. You're only going to get a person of these qualities with a decent salary and a full-time position. So, going to a half-time knocks this person right out. I'm sure they wouldn't be interested in the job at half-time. So we will take a major loss at capturing somebody that I think would be very valuable to our airport and its future.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just one other, I've heard the comments. I think we forget to understand what Kevin said. Kevin said that he needs them full-time now, and if the job evolves to a part-time position, that he's opening on moving in that direction. And I seem to think we should trust him to do that. Bring it up in a year or so, ask him to justify why it needs to stay full-time.
Mr. Beatty?
Yeah, that makes sense, but the problem I see is we've never taken somebody from full-time and banked them down to part-time, as far as I know. Once you're in the position, and I agree with Claudia, that it's, once you're in that position, airport manager full-time, show me examples where we've ever changed that and put somebody down to part-time. Now, Kevin did say that he wanted to make it a hybrid. I totally agree with that. Assistant superintendent, part-time airport manager. That makes sense to me. From a business standpoint, that makes sense. That fulfills the position of assistant superintendent, and it also gets us insight up to on the airport. To me, but hey, what do I know? That just makes good, sound business sense.
Claudia? I thought you raised your hand again.
I did. And it was only to make the point that we shouldn't be so focused on the individual filling that position. We don't, we try to stay away from that, I thought, not making decisions based on the individual person coming into this. But I think it should be a hybrid, should be hoping that we can ask that person to do other roles, not just be at the airport all the time. And I think if we bring this person on as an airport manager, that's never going to happen Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the hire is the responsibility of our superintendent of public works. And he's going to manage his department as he sees fit. He's going to use his personnel assets as he sees fit. The title may be full-time airport manager. Kevin will be looking at all the needs he has for his department. And if he needs someone full-time at the airport, he'll put the person full-time at the airport. If it comes a time where he doesn't need someone full-time at the airport, but he needs that person's talent someplace else, I expect the person hired is not going to say, oh, I'm an airport manager, I'm not stepping off this property. I expect he'll be a team player, work for the county, accommodate the superintendent's wishes.
Kevin, you had something else you wanted to add?
I just want to say, I never said part-time. I said I would reevaluate it and see if I could use this person in other departments, but I would never, and I'm not saying that here, is that we would keep him for a year and then reduce him down to part-time. No. I would like to hire this person as the airport manager, keep him as a full-time airport manager, and then reevaluate it. Maybe I heard in a year's time and see where we're at then.
Can we vote?
You sure
Can you
can.
vote?
I guess we can. I do have some comments around this, and I've talked to Kevin about the idea of bringing on a full-time airport manager. I did initially say that I agree that we need someone in that role to have contractual obligations and oversight that would protect the county's interest. I also questioned him on the need of a 40-hour position, and we did talk in detail about the abilities in the future, if it's determined, once in regards to whether we're going to be a fixed base operator or whether we're going to hire a fixed base operator. I think that what's been brought up today has made some sense that we consider, or in this proposal for hiring, that we make it very clear to this individual that this individual his responsibilities could change as a result of determination by this committee. He may be subject to helping in other roles in the Department of Public Works and not be just assigned to the airport. I agree with that concept. I don't know yet whether we need 40 hours, but I'm willing to make a proposal to this gentleman today with language in that proposal that would include language that was very clear that he may be assigned to do other tasks and other responsibilities that occur from time to time in other areas of the Department of Public Works where maybe we don't have to fund a position at that point in time. So that's what I want to add. Something similar to what Mr. McDivitt and Ms. Bramer has proposed, kind of creating looking at this position and maybe not filling another position if we determine that we don't need anybody 40 hours, but we want to keep him on the payroll on a full-time basis. So that would be my thought. Mr. Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With a 40-year career in working for private not-for-profits, most of the contracts or agreements that I've agreed upon being hired stipulate and other duties and responsibilities as assigned by the executive director or the chairman, and I don't know as much about accounting procedures, but I think that could be included in what Kevin was saying. Let them hit the ground doing all the airport stuff, and then as needed and as things work out at the time, use the skills and experiences to help out.
Did you have that discussion with him that this position could be a position where you're going to take on additional responsibilities if it's determined by this committee that 40 hours are not necessary at the airport, that he could be doing other tasks and responsibilities in other areas of the Department of Public Works.
I
Did you have that discussion with him?
I had that discussion to tell him whether or not he will be doing something else within the county. It's my role as the superintendent of public works to assign what this individual does. Right now, I'm assigning him as the airport manager because that's what I need.
Nobody's disagreeing with you, but
Yep.
if in
No,
fact...
I'm not saying anybody's disagreeing.
I'd make a motion, we vote on hiring an airport manager as set out.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's already
We already had him.
Okay, let's vote. Let's vote on it.
Roll call vote, please. Mr. Stroud.
Yes.
Frazier.
Yes.
Garrity.
Yes.
Mr. Sokol.
Yes.
Mr. Simpson.
Yes.
Mr. Leggett.
Yes.
Tibbet.
No.
Beatty.
Definitely no.
Mr. Wiles. Mr. Logue.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes with the idea that we come back and evaluate that position, and if it's not needed as a full-time operator, that we encourage or we take a look at the job responsibilities where we can maybe save money in other areas of the Department of Public Works. Motion carries. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, we've discussed that. Now we're going to go to privilege of the floor. At this point in time, I would offer anybody from the floor to come up and address the board.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Did we approve a salary?
80,000.
I thought we just approved
Okay,
the higher.
okay, then let me reintroduce the resolution, which would include the salary of $80,000. Is that what's been proposed?
I just want to say, you've already approved the hiring of an airport manager, so this is only the approval of the salary.
Okay. It's a salary for $80,000.
So this isn't coming to the full board? This is not coming to the full board?
As the approval of the salary, yes.
Salary
You've
portion.
already approved the hiring of an airport manager. It was done back in February, I believe.
Just the committee, but I guess that just...
No, I believe that went to the board, did it not? Mr. Geary?
What's that?
The hiring of an airport
I
manager.
don't know anything. Yes, we approved.
So, I guess,
Go to the board.
getting back to Mr. Beatty's question, this
Set the salary and...
this resolution was to set the salary. And that's what we're approving, the $80,000.
Should go to personnel.
Salary.
Should go to local board. Right.
Okay? So, are we clear on that particular resolution?
Yep, that's mine too. Sorry for sure.
Mr. Whitehead, do you have something you want to address the board with?
Yeah, I would, thank you. In regards to this, I've heard nothing but good things about this man as well, and I also have no reason not to support Mr. Hajos and his opinions on this. But while I can agree with virtually everything that was said here today, one thing that, and I think it was expressed by Mr. Wiles, this definitely undercuts any idea of negotiations with the FBO. A proposal was made 2 years ago to save $450,000, part of which would involve how this management would happen. And without discussing that, and, you know, again, putting the cart in front of the horse on this, you completely undercut that. There should be at least some discussion about how can we get anything like the $450,000 back. With the arrangement that you are now proposing, I'd like to hear that. And, you know, it's something that should have been discussed over the last 2 years. I've been making noises about it for over a year. And I guess I'll continue to do that. When this person arrives, however, I would also remind you that, as Mr. Stroud did, that there are environmental concerns out there. And the county has been lax in meeting its obligations. There is an order of consent from the DEC on lands that you took from the Earltown project that require you to maintain the weir levels in the drainage ditches. And I can give you photo on photo of what was called Lake Dewberry by the people out there, where beavers come in and will dam up these ditches and will flood that area, and this is a great detriment to the Marl Fen.
This was pointed out by Greg Edinger. It was also pointed out by CNS engineers. Ms. McGee wrote a letter over a year ago saying, geez, haven't these beavers already killed the marlsman? Isn't it something we don't have to worry about anymore? Fortunately, Mr. Edinger came in and said that's not the case, it's still viable. But I do remind you that you have responsibilities out there under this order of consent to maintain those ditches. And I'll suggest to Mr. Ajos just to remind him of that. And I don't know what's happened in the last year, but I have pictures of what happened over a year ago, and it was quite the scene there when they breached those dams, some of their equipment to try to drain that area. So that's my comment on that, Mr. Chairman. I do have another comment in regards to eminent domain, but if someone else would like to talk before that, I'll give up the floor if I can come back and talk about eminent domain.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Pilot, I'd just like to thank Kevin that the instructions on the approach to runway 12 have been removed. Thanks.
And your name, sir?
Patrick Schwimmer.
Oh, okay. Any other discussions? Turn it back over to Mr. Whitehead. We've got about 5 minutes, and then we got to get on to the next committee meeting.
With regards to eminent domain, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I always thought that it was to take land for a need, and again, that need was never established. I mean, I have a copy of a map here, which you all have available to you as well, that shows that the airport in its present configuration has no need whatsoever of any of that land that is owned by Macri. And I would hope that you have learned from the Gillette experience that when you get into situations where the outcome looks less than favorable, that you would have some discussion rather than running up those bills for year upon year. I understand that Mr. Macri is asking over $1 million at this point. He's only gotten about $327,000. And I remember that Paul Dusick went ahead and reminded you at one point about 3 years ago, just before you voted on eminent domain, that if that judge says that you owe $1 million, it's going to be the county that pays $1 million, not the FAA. And it would be up to the county to perhaps go back hat in hand to the FAA and make an argument that maybe they should get compensation. But then again, if that airport extension never goes in there, there's going to be absolutely no reason. You're going to eat, in my opinion, that $1 million. And that's something you should continue to consider. Thank you.
Anybody else? Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.